My name's Ed Piscor.
I'm Jim Rugg.
Cartoonist Kayfabe weekly shoot for the weekend of what, Jim?
July 5th, holiday weekend.
Feels like a lot has happened since I last saw you, just a mere 8 days ago.
Yes, a lifetime. I've been entertaining family all week, and it kind of stretches those days into what feel like weeks.
Some comic book news happened over the past week, man. 10-bell salute to an American institution, Mad Magazine. It's going to quit producing new material, going to go into reprint starting with, I guess, issue 10.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how this continues to play out. You know, my initial response, of course, is anything that is a paying gig for Cartoonist going away. That's a bummer. It's bad news, I think, any way you look at it. But, I mean, it's part of print publication as a whole. You know, Mad Magazine's not the first magazine to fold or to struggle to find sales in this current climate.
DC, a week or two ago, they shuttered the Vertigo line, and then the very next week, they created a horror line with Stephen King's son.
Yes.
Makes me wonder if next week we're going to have some news about Judd Apatow's kid now has a humor mag coming from DC Comics.
She's coming of age. It could happen.
Comics is that way, man. Like the big two, I should say. The big two is that way where they whore and they grovel for celebrity fucking endorsement, man. And it's a little bit sickening to me in a lot of ways. Just like it just reinforces the idea that, like, you know, this is not a meritocracy. It's just about making that money, man. So when you get Stephen King's son on the horn and give him a thing, it's no different than, you know, Conor McGregor getting to fight Floyd Mayweather and making $1 billion. Like, it'll make a splash with the first issues of all of those things, man, and then it'll be quickly forgotten.
Like 52.
52, like so much, man.
Right.
Like, I don't want to throw any homies under the bus or whatever, man. But I don't know that Mad was good even during our lifetimes. But everybody liked that it was there. I read the thing growing up.
It's definitely an institution. I was thinking about the last couple of Mad magazine collection reprints, whatever, that I actually spent money on.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's not new issues. It is like Mad specials that I've tracked down after the fact. One that stands out, 1981 special. You know, they would do all these collections like the Mad specials, and this one is on comics, you know, all the comic strips. So the Mads that I would buy weren't new Mads, you know, it would be reprints. It would be like the artist edition of Mad Magazine, you know, these nice EC hardcover reprints, things of that nature. So you're right, you know, like when I was a kid, I bought Cracked magazine. You know, I didn't know Mad from Cracked in terms of history or what should be better. I was just buying the one that, you know, kind of appealed to me on the rack. So I don't know that we lose a lot in terms of what current Mad magazine looks like, but certainly a changing of, you know, it's a lot of comics history there to say goodbye to, at least in that iteration.
The first 23 issues of Mad are basically required reading for me when it comes to education as a cartoonist, and I'm not the only one to say so, man. This is not a controversial statement. In fact, Alan Moore has come out and said, and if you read those comics, you see his point, but the structure and the storytelling and the pacing flow of Watchmen really borrowed heavily from Kurtzman's tenure on the original Mad comic book, because, as they say, they used every bit of the animal to get their points across and to tell their stories, from probably some of the very first examples I've seen using the old 4-color process of adjusting color for time of day even. You know, there are strips, The Lone Stranger, where he's got his 6 guns out, and it's a thunderstorm, and sometimes it's dark blue. You know, the panel will be dark blue with the water coming down. Sometimes bright yellow, one after the other after the other. That exactly mirrors whenever Rorschach is sitting there in Moloch's apartment, and there's like the neon lights outside that's kind of flickering, and that's
Right.
done. They picked that little trick up from Kurtzman.
Definitely amazing attention to detail. I can't remember when we were looking at the Super Duper Man. I don't know if we were talking about Wally Wood and bringing that up, but my takeaway from that stuff is, like, those dudes were fans of comics, you know, much like something like Watchmen or Alan Moore's work, where it's like maybe it's revisionist, maybe it's parody or satire, but it's really like almost fans first. It's clearly something that they love.
They know it well.
They know it inside and out. Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that comes across to me in those early issues. The other part is just the subversiveness. Like, that's the big legacy in my mind, is like seeing this stuff where it almost felt like I shouldn't be reading it or seeing it, or someone should be in trouble, or how do you get away with this? I can remember as a kid looking at some of that stuff and just thinking like, are you allowed to do this?
Look at how scary that Basil Wolverton stuff is, man. That's so
Yes.
freaky. But there is one story in the Mad comic in particular that strikes those subversive chords to me. When you really think about it, it's a comic about Robinson Crusoe, and stranded on a desert island, and cobbles together a wife made from like dead animals and meat and shit like that. So it's like bestiality, it's necrophilia, and probably 2 or 3 other weird kinks wrapped up in one little kid's comic, man.
Yeah, that's amazing. I thought you were going to do the Bringing Up Father story.
Excellent.
Because that's another one that's about as subversive as you could possibly be, with Will Elder and Bernie Krigstein sort of like showing the two sides of a lot of maybe implied abusive relationships played for comedy in the past. That one sort of exposes it as like, oh my, what are we laughing at here?
Yeah, sure. Specifically, it was about comic strips.
Very formally inventive. Like, that's one of those strips that I've encountered pretty young and had no tools really to dissect what I was seeing, but could understand like something is weird here. Like the different styles, the different tones that really informed my ideas on like formalism in comics.
Will Elder would play it straight, and he would do an amazing parody of, for instance, Bringing Up Father, and that would be on, say, the left-facing page, or that would be on the right-facing page, and then you turn the page, and then Bernie Krigstein would do what they would suggest as the real-life interpretation of what you're seeing. So when you have like the funny little moment of like the wife throwing plates at the husband, and that's the punchline. Well, let's see what happens next.
Right.
And it's some harrowing black and white pen and ink imagery, man, from Bernie Krigstein, dude.
Those things were amazing, though, start to finish, as you say, using every part of the animal. Like, the covers always stood out to me. Like, that was something that was so formally inventive. And I think they still stand up today. Those first couple of dozen issues, all kinds of stuff on covers, from like making tiny logos or little art, just things I had never seen. I don't know if I've seen them anywhere else before or since.
One of my favorite covers in those early issues, man, was the one that was made to look like a composition notebook, man, so that you could sneak it into class.
Yes,
how cool
amazing.
is that? You know, rest in peace, Mad Magazine. Rest in peace, Al Feldstein, William Gaines, Harvey Kurtzman, Wally Wood, Jack Davis, man. Like the roster of cartoonists that came through there, and a lot of very famous writers, comedians, actors had some cup of coffee going through there. Chevy Chase wrote for Mad Magazine once.
Yeah, I think you could compare it to something like Saturday Night Live, where over the course of such a long run, it's a pretty interesting snapshot, at least of pop culture, American pop culture.
Yeah, I think Woody Allen popped in once or twice. And this is before they were anybody, really. You know, like they sort of came through there.
Oh, yeah, well. It feels like they built a reputation very early on, and rode that reputation for a long time.
As most properties do, you know, like point to almost anything. It's certainly in comics, and they're in this coast mentality, man, where it's like inertia. It's keeping the property going. I don't know that they didn't keep the magazine going just to try to get another revival TV show or some shit, you know? Like, is Mad TV still on?
Yeah, right. That thing was on forever. I have no idea whether it's still on. I'm sure it's being syndicated somewhere. One last Kurtzman note.
Yes.
Howard Chaykin recently was writing about Alex Toth. Mm-hmm. And, you know, people were adding to that conversation. And I just saw a recent Facebook addendum that he posted, and it was connecting Bernie Krigstein and Alex Toth as sort of like kind of the design cartoonist, you know, in comics past, and connecting them through Harvey Kurtzman, both working with him at EC Comics. So, you know, that original material continues to stay relevant in terms of these, you know, significant contributions to comics history. And another point that Chaykin makes describes Kurtzman as being the best writer in American comics up until Alan Moore. Now, obviously, this is debatable, and I'm sure we'll get some comments suggesting others. But it does point to the significance of this guy. And I think, besides the humor in Mad Magazine and the subversiveness and awareness of form, you could also look at, his war comics as sort of the counterpoint of that piece. And a lot of the artists that work there, same deal. They were able to work in all these genres successfully. And, Mad might have been the perfect outlet for this incredible tool set that these guys had assembled.
I judge a cartoonist by which of these Russ Cochran EC hardcover reprint sets they have, and for my money, you need to have the Kurtzman stuff. You have to have Frontline Combat. You have to have Two Fisted Tales, and you have to have the collection of Mad in order to sort of for us to have that real conversation at dinner at a convention or some shit like that, man. I'll just keep it superficial with everybody else, man. How was your day type shit, man.
Right.
I have them all. And all of the artists who work amongst all the different genres, they work with Kurtzman on these stories. So you get a very good sample of what they look like untethered, working with Al Feldstein and just trying to communicate those stories. Then when you see Kurtzman get a hold of them, put the reins on them, because very famously, Stickler, very, very specific in his storytelling, in his requirements of you as an artist. He would basically draw the scripts and give you all the compositions laid out, and you see it so clearly, beat by beat by beat. There are probably some of the first examples where he was paying attention to pagination. I described the Kurtzman Elder piece, but there would also be these beats where you would turn the page and the panel here would mimic the panel on the page right underneath, almost like animation. And it would be sort of the same scenario, but with maybe a different background. And it would be if you listen to the audio commentary tracks on The Simpsons, it would be Jim Brooks jokes, where it's you could do something once and it's funny, you could do it twice and it's still good, 3 times it's okay, 4 times less so, by the 8th time hilarious.
Yes.
And that is something that Harvey Kurtzman brought to the table, man. That old it's kind of Borscht Belt humor, stuff that inspired Mel Brooks and his parody things. There were Mad movie parodies far before there were Mel Brooks film parodies.
Corolla's working on a Mad documentary right now. So it continues to be relevant and have this footprint in history of comedians that are influenced ever since it started. They continue to come out of that school. Speaking
of relevant, Corolla, if you want to be on point, you got to have the Kayfabers on that thing as talking heads.
That'd be fun.
We'll send this as a portfolio piece. What else in comic news, man? There was some anime expo out there in Cali.
This is true, yeah. So the biggest news for me coming out of that is Otomo coming back in a lot of ways. One, working on new anime. That's exciting, of course. Fans of Akira, I'm sure I'm not the only one. But also news of complete reprints of his manga.
From 1971 moving forward. This means you're going to be able to get Domu. This means you're going to be able to get Fireball at an affordable price. Plus all of the other material, 7 or 8 books worth of comics. Hundreds of, maybe thousands of pages of comics are going to be translated in English for the first time.
Yeah, to me, that's super great comics news.
There are these chasms and voids in American comics that are frankly fucking embarrassing to me, because I travel the world. You go to France. You go to the UK. You see reprints of Mobius work all over the place, and we're just scratching the surface now. The Dark Horse reprints of Mobius work that we have, it's not even the good stuff yet. They don't have the good licenses yet. And the fact that Otomo has been withholding of his Juvenilia for so long, maybe we have some effect on that, man. Maybe the popularity of our Kayfabe videos, man.
Yeah, I haven't seen the transcription of this announcement, so it's quite possible we're cited in there somewhere.
One other piece from that Otomo announcement is that there's an independent anime, something brand new that he's developing, but there's also an Acura project in anime that he's putting together. The way they describe it in the articles online is that it's going to be his way to try to incorporate far more of like the manga story onto the big screen.
Right.
We recorded not too long ago. Should we post that one Monday?
Yeah, I'm down for that.
Okay, we're going to post the Akira Volume 4 episode Monday. And very early on in that episode, we described that there is 0 within Volume 4 that has been harvested for use on the big screen. In fact, from Volume 4 forward, basically maybe Volume 3 forward, the only stuff that would have been used in the actual anime is the iconic bubble guts, disgusting tumor, Tetsuo, big
Right.
baby thing that happens. But everything else, if you're not familiar with Otomo's comics, like, you got to read the rest of Akira, and he's going to do what he can to bring as much of that material onto the big screen. Be amazing to see how that shakes out.
Yeah, for sure. Anything that brings that work to a wider audience, I'm in favor of. I think it's astounding comics, man. It's my favorite stuff in life. So I'm thrilled to hear that he's focusing on it, that publishers are behind it, and that it will create new fans. Lots of people haven't seen that material, the original stuff. So anything to kind of like bring that to a wider audience, readers or viewers, I am in favor of, and I think that's real exciting news for comics.
I guess another very exciting thing for a lot of readers out there, Walking Dead has ended.
Yeah, it's amazing what Walking Dead has been. I thought about its legacy a little bit, and I sometimes wonder, like, is Image Comics still publishing today if Walking Dead doesn't show up? A few years ago, I believe Walking Dead was something like 3 or 4% of the direct market sales of everybody. Like, it would have been like the 3rd biggest publisher or something. Incredible, I mean, probably everybody's somewhat familiar with Robert Kirkman's story, but Walking Dead becomes a tremendous success, buys a stake in Image, one of the Image publishers now. So a huge legacy from Walking Dead, both as a comic that is beloved and a huge television show on cable, but also behind the scenes as a publisher, as a major influencer on the industry of comics and where comics are today. Image has had quite a renaissance in the last decade or so. Huge part of that is the success of Walking Dead and what that has meant to Image in that time period, and to a lot of retailers, I'm sure, too. We've done lots of bookstores, lots of comic book stores. You see the Walking Dead sections. A lot of fans come to comic book stores because of the Walking Dead and hopefully stay for other stuff that they find. But Walking Dead, man, has been an on-point book for the comics industry in America for over a decade. Interesting contrast between Walking Dead and Mad. Robert Kirkman gets to decide whenever that book folds. He gets to end it on his terms. Had a very exciting story, kills off his main character. He's famous for killing all these characters, but he gets to decide that. Most of the response that I have seen has been overwhelmingly positive. So it's a bummer to see a big book go away. I'm sure the Walking Dead property will still be around. Those books aren't going to cease publication and reprints, and I imagine there'll be some other stories that come out using that setting, that world that he's made. But pretty big news and a big surprise. Pretty cool how he was able to make that happen without anybody knowing it.
Yeah, I believe there were 2 or 3 other issues being solicited, and so he pulls the swerve, pops that issue out. The other issues are canceled. Here it is, man. It's over.
Yes. So all of you bootleggers out there, those will be the future bootleg issues of Walking Dead, right?
How much are people kicking themselves in the butt for not scooping that comic up when it hit the racks, man? That was about whenever we started kicking it.
Yes.
It was brand new, and it wasn't a massive hit. It was like, oh, here's an interesting Image comic that's not from like the initial founding fathers.
Yeah, it was a comic that would sell more and more as the series went on. The rarest comics on Earth.
Yes.
The ones that actually build over time and the numbers increase.
I hit the New York Times bestseller list once, and there were 5 Walking Dead books on there, and I have a lot of firsthand experience with friends, family, and just people I meet out in the wild. Walking Dead is their first comic that they've read in maybe since they were a kid, maybe ever, and it is inspiring them. It has inspired them to like come into the store, check out a couple new things. They'll usually stick with the Kirkman body of work, But this is just my first-hand experience. I have to imagine that there are other people out there who are like being turned into proper comic fans. So
Kirkman zombies. Yeah, Walking Dead, I think of like there's a handful of these comics in history that I would like a list of like the top selling pieces based on reprints and things. Like Walking Dead 1, you say, you know, a lot of people's first comic. I'm sure of it. That thing was reprinted, I think, at every Wizard World. They would reprint issue 1s. That trade paperback volume 1 has sold. That's the one on the top of that bestsellers list for, you know, a decade.
Yeah.
Like that book has been printed and reprinted millions of times, especially around the world. And I think it's like Walking Dead, Jeff Smith's Bone, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1. These are those independent, creator-owned titles that really have hit that million seller, 10 million seller, like, you know, rare sells air on those. And they're kind of the, you know, they were the inspiration for me as a kid. Obviously, Walking Dead wasn't around then, but that model, that idea of like, it can be done, and here's another example.
The Jeff Smith piece is the most interesting component, like the most interesting of those people you described, because he did not need Hollywood to push those numbers. You know what I'm saying? Like both of those other properties, Walking Dead would not hit the numbers it would have if it wasn't a very successful and reasonably good television show. Same thing with Ninja Turtles. It would have been a hot comic, but it would have been ElfQuest. It would have been Cerebus.
Yeah, I think that's very fair.
Yeah.
Especially the Turtles were so driven by that stuff. Walking Dead was selling well. You know, I mean, I'm sure that TV show pushed those numbers through the roof. But the TV show may have been inevitable based on the sales. Like that was a book that was going places, you know, before the TV show. But Turtles, I think you're right. Like that book wasn't gonna. We wouldn't know Turtles if it weren't for all the successful multimedia.
Your cousin wouldn't know Turtles.
That's true. That's true. Yes, exactly. You and I would know Turtles.
Yeah. What videos did we post this past week, man? We had a pretty good response this past week with some of the stuff that we put out there.
Yeah, we posted Warren Bernard, SPX director, one of the great collectors of comics, especially World War II era comics. So we had a talk with him about collecting, about SPX, about his history around comics. Older guy, so his history goes back to those days of fandom. And also, I believe from the DC area, which is kind of one of those mythic hotspots of comics history. Gotten a really good response to that. We've known Warren for years, so it was very fun to actually sit down, talk to him about stuff that we've talked to him about before, but a chance to share it with the Kayfabe community. And the response has been really strong there. And we plan to visit more with Warren. You know, around SPX, we'll probably actually get to visit some of his collection and see some of the items that he talks about. Posted the Junji Ito episode, The Enigma of Amigara Fault. Very exciting episode. Very fun to read that comic. One of my favorite comics that I've read in a long time. Kind of a short horror comic, but the kind of thing that is just psychologically perfect as a short story. So that was a real fun one.
Before we continue, I had a new life experience this past week. And I don't know that I should have chosen this week, the day after posting the Junji Ito episode, to try and do this thing. It all worked out. But I tried float therapy for the first time.
That's
went,
exciting.
Yeah, I went, and if you don't know what it is, man, it's a sensory deprivation tank. It's got about a foot of water in there. They dissolve 700 pounds of Epsom salt in there. When you step into the business, the building, it's got all the feng shui, burning incense, like everything that is supposed to bring about tranquility, peacefulness, all of that sort of hippie type shit. You get your room, there's 2 rooms, lock on the door, because one of the thoughts in my mind is like, why wouldn't you just like go in there and have some creep like come in and like take the money out of your wallet or some shit, you know? Like,
Okay.
I don't doubt that's ever happened. Got your little lock on the door, you step up, there's the tank, the girl gives you the scoop, you got these earplugs that you could pop in. You rinse off beforehand, the shower's right there, and then you open the door, you pop your ass right in. And as soon as you step into the water, it just feels like water, but you could tell that there's like a little tension, a little resistance, man. And you close the door. I liked to reorient myself. Like if you step in, you could just like lay down and have the door right above your head. But I decided that I wanted to reorient myself so that I could sit up and be facing out rather than just like have to like get out this way. So I changed my position, man, shut that door, and I laid back, man. And as soon as you lay back, boom, all of that salt pushes you right to the surface. And the idea is you can't see anything, can't really hear anything. The water is the temperature of your body. The air is the temperature of your body, thereabouts. So the idea is you feel nothing, you hear nothing, you see nothing for 1 hour. They start this like very peaceful music, and that's your cue that the clock is ticking. The music goes away, and I have some suggestions about what to do. Now it actually worked out really well. I'm not a claustrophobic person. I was slightly skeptical. It was just something I've always wanted to try. And after finishing X-Men, I have some time. I also went in with an agenda. I was going to like work out storytelling parts.
Right. Yes.
Storytelling
Get
things.
some work done in there.
That was impossible because you can't, like, I only did it once so far, but I ended up getting a membership. So I'm going to like go at least once a month. You lay there and you're just like so aware of like the situation. It's so different from anything you've ever done. And if I felt stupid a little bit to start because I'm like, I can't let any of my homies from Homestead know I'm doing this shit right now, man. It's just a little too crazy. You're not used to air being the same temperature as your body, so it made me a little anxious to start because I felt like, oh no, is it going to get even hotter? Because it was pretty hot air. But you lay back there and you're like, okay, it's time to relax, and you relax your muscles. And you think that you're all good. Then 5 minutes goes by, and you find like, oh, I could relax these muscles too. And it continues for the entire time, dude. Like, you just unravel in there. Every time you think that you're as relaxed as you can possibly be, there's like, and you like unravel even further. Like a piece of Jell-O, you're laying there, man. Have some advice if you're going to try it out, man.
This has been on my list for a while.
Okay, so to maximize your time, when you lay in there and you hear like the music jutting, I think that probably is standard operating procedure at most of these joints. If you hold your arms out, you can, like, I would suggest like just holding your arms against the walls of the thing. If you're as tall as I am. Now, if you're a short person, you're all good. You're not going to like hit the sides and stuff. But it's been 25 years since I've taken a bath, so it's been a while since like I'm like, oh yeah, you can create for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. So I was kind of like moving a little too much in there while I was floating, and then you could like touch the sides, and that'll just take you out of the moment.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So I suggest like you just like hold the edges, get yourself oriented to the middle, and then like as the music goes away, just like slowly, like relax your arms into the position that feels natural. And the natural position is kind of like this, like and just get to the natural position so that you are just still. You're not moving. Your head's not gonna. You're not gonna slowly float to like any of the edges, and you'll just be there. You won't feel any of the stuff, man. There's some fiction out there with these things.
Altered states.
Yeah. Like no, I didn't experience that, but.
You didn't turn into a cave
Saw no colors,
crawl out and eat a sheep at the zoo.
Saw no colors, but you are constantly aware of certain things. This is probably the best you can do, but you are constantly aware of like where the water line ends on your body, mostly on your face. Mm-hmm. You can tell exactly where like the division is between like what's above water and what's not. Less so the further down you get. But when the hour goes by fast, and I made note when the music cued back on, I made note of like what I think my face looked like at that point, and it was like mouth agape, eyes closed, because even you discover that even holding your mouth closed takes a little muscle. And at the end of it, I was just like really unraveled. And when you step out, man, like you do feel amazing. And I wonder if it's like because of the deprivation and your body is kind of like, oh, there's stimuli again. I'm inspired to like go try the 90-minute session and see what that's like. There are like some rules of thumb going in, like don't shave that day, like before you go in, because with 600 pounds of Epsom salts and water, like that'll sting the fuck out of you, and you will sense that, you know. And obviously, like don't eat big meals and don't have to like go out and use the bathroom during your 60-minute session. But super cool, super amazing. If you're as anxiety prone as I am, and certainly with this story I'm working on now, it's just something that's constantly on my mind, and a palate cleanser is welcomed. Can't recommend it highly enough, man.
Man, that's good. I'm glad to hear you say that. That's been on my list for a while. A couple years ago, I looked into it, and there wasn't anything local. I think the nearest thing I could find was Cleveland or somewhere, and I didn't want to do it that badly. But it is something that's on my radar, so maybe I'll do that in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, two or three local spots. I'll share the one that I went to with you, Ben, and
the Golden State Warriors, Steph Curry, multiple-time MVP, great basketball player. They do a lot of stuff in the NBA that's sort of like forward-thinking, like they have nap coaches and things like that, So like there's everybody's looking for every possible physical edge, and the float therapy is something that he's been advocating for the last half dozen years. Really, since he's become a superstar, it's been part of his, as they scrutinize his routine, that's a piece that has emerged as part of it.
I think that the more you do it, it just becomes more and more valuable, I think, because the very first time you do it, you are hyper aware.
Sure.
I haven't done it a second time yet, but I know the score. I know the ropes now.
Yes.
I know what to expect, so I'll be able to get into that, as they call it, a theta state, far faster than I did then. And I bet you at the end, if you go 10 times, put it this way, when I was leaving, I wanted to pay cash to like get the membership. I just had that on me, and it was hard to like figure out in the computer system for the girl who was working the joint in the lobby. And I was there for a little longer than I wanted to be to try to figure it out. And the owner guy comes in, and he is the most calming, chilled out, zen dude I ever met in my freaking life. Like just like a ball of positivity and like good vibes. And he was coming in because he was going to do like his daily one.
Oh man.
And I'm like, okay, man, like that. It was almost like a scam they pulled on me, where it's like let's get this guy in here, man, to just so like the most like harmonious, positive, like nice guy. Like, you just are immediately like attracted to the dude as like, oh, that's a good guy, that's a real nice dude. And he made the whole thing work. So I'm like, yeah, like I'll be messing with this a little bit, man. It's funny what you say though about like how the athletes like try to get the edge and like figure out new things. Remember like years ago, man, at the Summer Olympics, Michael Phelps takes off his robe and steps to the damn pool. And he's got those suction cup marks all over his back. Like he brought that into vogue, like getting those like super heavy duty suction darts.
Yeah, that's a pretty popular.
But
there's lots of this stuff, though. I mean, from yoga to various massages and things, there's lots of different... Like, meditation is something I've done next to nothing with.
Yes.
But so many people advocate for that. And it always comes up when I listen to podcasts, and you listen to these people that are, in front of their industry enough that they're being interviewed about how they got where they are. Lots of them bring up these different types of... I don't know if therapy is the right word, but different practices that they use to sort of like reset their mind, to get into kind of a daily practice of some sort. And it ranges from things like, Joe Rogan's a big float therapy guy.
Yeah.
But, there's a broad range of this stuff.
Yeah, acupuncture.
Acupuncture, extreme heat things, like Laird Hamilton, the big wave surfer, does like, I forget what it is. It's like 225 degrees, I want to say, for sauna treatment, which is absurd because, like, literally you can cook meat at that temperature.
Yeah, like crock pots are that temperature.
But, everybody points to various sciences as saying, like,
20 minutes.
Proof of this.
Like, you can do like 20 minutes.
Short times for sure. But there's a wide range of this stuff, and I'm up for trying quite a bit of it because why not? Like,
You'll give us
part of running is like part of what I get out of running is this idea. Like, I think of running as almost purely a mental exercise because physically, it's not a perfect exercise, but it has that mental component, that repetition, that sort of getting into a certain zone. I think the breathing and circulation part's a big plus, but there's a lot of these activities that you can you'll hear people talk about.
Is the runner's high a real thing?
Yeah. It has been in my experience. There's a distance I have to go to get that. You know, I'm not going to get that in 2 miles, but like 4 is a pretty sweet spot for me. Like usually that's enough. Like I can certainly feel that difference afterwards.
Yeah. Can you describe it?
It's probably peacefulness, especially because I often do it, you know, midway through a day or something, and it is a reset. You know, like when I'm walking back after a run, I usually run around my house, and when I'm walking back, I can feel it, and it's always like, why don't you do this every day? And you know, and sometimes I do for long stretches, but it definitely has that like a calming, almost a Zen effect, and I can feel it very strongly. It'd be equivalent of a good nap or something where you wake up and you just feel refreshed. So almost that refreshed, calm.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We have travels coming up.
Yeah, the next show that we have booked is a Canadian show, international travel.
Yes.
DCAF, Dartmouth Comic and Art Festival. It's in the Halifax area. I'm not sure if it's actually Halifax. The store that's bringing us in for it, Strange Adventures, has 3 stores in that area. And so it'll be in conjunction with a big public library there. One day there'll be talks and kind of research presentations and things at the public library, which is awesome. We'll be doing a Cartoonist Kayfabe there. I think that was why we got invited in the first place, is to go there and I guess talk comics from our point of view. And then one day is more of a traditional comic convention. You know, vendors, artists set up and selling their wares to the public. So that's coming up in August 18th and 19th, August 17th and 18th, which will be here before we know it.
Yeah, we better start preparing, and you guys will continue to hear about it each week up until then.
Yeah, and you know, anybody that's going to that or interested in seeing us talk live and do one of these things live, let us know stuff that you'd like to see us cover or talk about. There's such a broad range. I think of everybody I've ever seen speak about comics, from Art Spiegelman to, you know, Charles Burns or somebody. It's such a wide range of what you can talk about at these things. So if there are things that you all enjoy seeing, you know, it's probably, I'm assuming, about an hour talk, something like that. You know, post comments. Let us know what have been good panels, good comic related talks and events. What has worked for you guys in the past. Let us know about that stuff, because I enjoy this part, but definitely we're on the. I'm kind of new to this. I've done lots of panels, but actually designing my own talk, I haven't done that many.
You bring up travels, man. One of the gifts that I wanted to present myself after finishing X-Men was to take a trip to Japan. I've always been interested in their comics, anime, video games, and lots of other things. Always wanted to go, and an opportunity presented itself to me around fall of last year, where a famous Japanese rapper solicited me to draw like a DVD cover. I guess Blu-rays and stuff still sell out there. And I decided, let's not... I've been burnt on currency conversion in the past, you know, where I think I'm going to get a certain thing, and even if I have it in US dollars and I get the, say, yen equivalent, there's still many other fees when it comes to like wire transfers and depending on how the economy's doing. I decided, how about we just like leave currency out of the equation in terms of payment? I'll accept first class ticket, 2 weeks, stay in a hotel, and let's call it 10,000 yen per day, kind of per diem while I'm out there, man. And they said yes very quickly, and I'm like, fuck, maybe I should have asked for maybe 20,000 yen or some shit.
That's the freelancers. That's like the worst freelancer stuff, is negotiating terms and getting the yes too quickly.
The quick yes, man. The quick yes. You know they caught you.
You left something on the table.
Yeah. By being finished with this X-Men thing, the work that I'm putting together now myself, I own it, and I put a lot of very rigid rules upon myself with the X-Men thing, because it was like, you know, this is a comic that lives and dies by one person. If I even get sick, it could be looked at as a labor action, you know, like, because the entire team is not working on comics. In fact, I had pneumonia for a month when I was working on X-Men, and I want more singular Marvel DC comics, so I couldn't create a bad example of like, oh, we'll never do this again. So I was rigid. Over 1,000 days of work in a row on that thing. I was going somewhere with that. Oh, but the point is, like, by writing and drawing my own thing now, I could do that on my own time. So I decided, like, going out there to Japan, getting that free trip, getting that bougie ass first class ticket.
I'm very jealous of that part.
Got to make good use of it, man. So I'm deciding to stay out there an extra 2 weeks. It's my first time to Japan. A month should be a good introductory period. I can already tell you I'm gonna have a ball and want to go back. So I looked into those details, and I'm like, okay, a tourist can go out there for like 90 days, 3 months. I don't doubt that I'll go out there for 3 months sometime in the future. Why not, man? Especially if I get to rock on my own schedule, which if any luxuries like that my books have brought me over these past 7-8 years is the fact that I can live and die by my own schedule and never have to wake up to a freaking alarm clock. You know what I'm saying, man? So why not go out there and explore, jack out of the matrix, leave the computer behind. I'll definitely be bringing the cameras, man, and getting content for the Kayfabe YouTube channel because I know I'm going to discover things. Hunting in the manga shops. I want to go to every headquarters, Kodansha, the building where the Shonen Jump is put together. There is a dude who I'm connecting with who is a translator for manga, and I'm going to utilize his services. I'm going to make him annoyed at me by just trying to maximize the opportunity, man. I don't doubt that we'll get him in front of the camera for a shoot interview and get the scoop on his point of view.
Yeah, I'll get to join the Kayfabers as a fan for those videos.
I'm going to have a lot of questions. Like, any Kayfabers out there who've been to Japan, I need to know everything, man. Please drop some comments. You went out there for like 10 days. I need to know everything that you have to offer, man. Like, I was talking with the dudes and finding different hotels and junk, and this one looked very promising, and I showed it to them, and they're like, oh yeah, great location, because that's what you want. What's a place where you could like go kick some ass, and then not have to traverse much terrain to like get back to your homestead. And then I start to like read these articles about like the places to kind of like avoid because of like tourists being marks. There are like the red light district. You could imagine that's Yakuza territory, and this exact building is like right there. And I was reading about like the scams they pull in those areas on like foreign dudes, like talking them into the club, making them pay a fee, bumping, like making a glass of sake cost $200, making you pay to leave, which sounds really scary.
Yes.
I don't imagine myself indulging in like vice activities out there. I don't care about pachinko. I might want to see it.
Maybe that cannibal comic.
Right. Yeah. Maybe meet that guy. Get a shoot interview with that
Well,
cannibal.
I don't know about
dude.
that part.
You wouldn't co-sign a shoot interview? Like,
no, I want you to do it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that.
Right. Well, he has a type. I don't think I fit his kink, man.
Yes.
Off the bat, man, I know I have you on the spot. Do you have any advice for a first timer going out there?
Talk to Chris Butcher a lot.
Yeah, sure.
I was running like social media stuff, so like I would post like what hasn't been translated that I should try to track down, and I would be running these, and then like in the morning I'd wake up and it'd be like, what if people populated on my Facebook or Twitter or whatever, and then at night I would go to different manga shops with just pictures of stuff and try to find what I could. So that would be one. Nakano Broadway Mall was the thing that everybody recommended to me whenever I was asking online, what should I see? And that's like, I don't know, 3 or 4 story giant complex of just stores, and they're all anime, manga related. And that's where I found like Garo back issues and all the wrestling comics that I picked up. Most of those all came from that one spot. So that's a really convenient spot, and it has everything I could think of. I found Hip Hop Family Trees there. So like it was from like, that would be like an art comics kind of shop next to like back issues, next to, whatever indie stuff. So that's a place to go, and that may be a place to go for multiple days if you're really digging for some specific stuff. Everything I went there looking for, I found at that spot. There's an anime district, and that was pretty cool. It was just like 8-story manga shops next to 8-story manga shop, and I would just like go up and down.
I'm jerking off thinking about it right now.
It was incredible. I came back. I come back from almost any of these like travel experiences just charged because
Yeah.
it's a different perspective on comics. And so like those big manga shops, they would have like one floor would be like a gallery of some, I'm sure it would change and rotate, but it'd be like art, of some sort, either maybe local artist or an anthology show. They would have like fan artists would be on one floor. You go in and get whatever character you like drawn by, not a professional manga artist exactly, but almost like employee of the store or something that would do that. And then like the different floors would have your different types, different genres, different age groups of manga. Local stuff, like make sure you pick up some of that. I would find small press, like photocopied stuff, equivalent of zines or mini comics. So the anime district is definitely a place to go check out because it's so concentrated. There were stores that were like museums almost of figurines and things that were in glass cases and just beautifully displayed, and you just walk through just giant eyes, amazed by what you would see. Just incredible stuff, from the toy spectrum all the way to the more specific manga stuff that you'll be looking for, I hope. And then there's just the wide range of what is a manga shop, right? So like there's the big shop of like the new phone book kind of stuff that's right outside of the subway. You'd see businessmen buying it. It's exactly what you'd read about like I would read about growing up in magazines about what that scene is like. Man, you can participate in all that. Like I bought stuff at used bookstores. I bought stuff at manga shops. I bought stuff at those like kind of like equivalent of a newsstand. I don't know exactly what they would call them. There were vendors on the street that were selling them. Like here's a blanket and there's a bunch of manga. So from a comic standpoint, like it's kind of the greatest place I've ever seen. Like there was no end of it. And I would just go around at night, listening to music and just go from shop to shop, just blowing my mind.
I'm jazzed.
There would be just shelves of baseball manga, so like genres that we don't even have. I don't know if we have any American baseball comics from this century, and it would be like that would be its own pretty big section.
I'm jazzed, man.
It'll be amazing. I can't wait to see what you document of that experience because it blew my mind. It was incredible.
Yeah, like I said, any Kayfabers out there who have some good rules of thumb for a first timer traveling out there, and I'm talking on the most practical terms. Should I get yen ahead of time here in the country, or can you just pop in your card at an ATM and get money out with minimal fees? Like I know almost nothing. For the last 2 weeks, it's up to me to find out where I'm going to stay. And I could choose like a hotel. I could choose Airbnbs. If I get an Airbnb, like what are the cool places to stay? Like I am leaning in that direction because the Airbnbs are on the periphery of like the metro area. So like you get to see real life. You know what I'm saying, man? Like I want to see what real life is like outside of the hustle and bustle of Shibuya or Shinjuku.
One thing that I regretted not doing was going to pro wrestling.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, definitely schedule that for one night. Whenever I decided, I should do that, it was later in the week or it was towards the end of our trip. And I can't remember if it was just because of where we were staying, but it was like a weekly event or whatever, but it had already passed and I wasn't going to be there whenever it came up again. So
I was looking for sumo.
Yes.
But the next event would have been later in November than I would be there. Like, I'm going to go there from like October 7th to November 4th. And the sumo event would have been later in November, and I don't think it would have been in Tokyo. Like I think I'm going to pretty much stay close to Tokyo because I do want to maximize comic book stuff. Now, if a Kayfaber in the comments says like Kyoto has like a big comics culture, and like if that's where Kodansha's building is or something, maybe I got to go to Kyoto for a week or something. But what I'm leaning toward is maybe getting a few different Airbnbs in like different parts, just so that I could experience like little bits of different stuff here and there along the way.
Yeah, all the lead up and the research will be like half the fun. I'm sure whatever people can contribute and recommend and stuff will be great. But we've also gotten feedback from people that live in Japan, that watch the station too. So that should be interesting to see what their recommendations are.
And maybe we bump into one another out there, man. There was one dude who sent us a book about like his first year being out there in Japan. So, dude, let's kick it.
Yeah, man.
Show me where the sushi spot is, man. Put in a reservation to Jiro's joint. There's no way that shit is like years in advance kind of thing. I don't know, Jim. I think this pretty much wraps it up. We had the week off from our screenwriting course, man. That's going to resume again on Wednesday. We have a lot of homework to do in the meantime.
Yes, that's what I'm going to be doing tomorrow. I have pages and index cards and stacks of notes that I've been working on when I have free time this week. And so I'm supposed to turn that in a couple days from now. Tomorrow's going to be organizing that, type it up in a way that makes sense for other people to read.
It's been a real pleasure, like, watching your stuff develop, man. It's going to be real fun, like, watching it continue to turn into what it's going to inevitably be. But in order for that to even happen, we have to get the hell out of here.
Yes, work to be done.
Like, subscribe, and follow the YouTube channel. Hit the bell icon, and it'll let you know whenever we have new videos available.
You can pick up Cartoonist Kayfabe merch at our spread shop. This is my latest t-shirt from there, so link below the video for that.
We already told you guys what we're about to do, man, so you know what your marching orders are in the meantime.
Read more comics.